Hello, my name is Hannah Marr. This is CA1 for multiplayer distributed programming. I worked on this project with Andrew Disley, and I'm just going to take you through the work that I've done. So one of the first bits of work I did for this project was help source the 3D or the third-party assets we've been planning to use. So you can find these sources in the main folder in a text file called source.txt. I sourced the player sprite that we're going to use and the background pickup sprites that we used, which I'm going to take you through now. So these are the player sprites that we decided to use, these little spacemen up here. Not much editing was needed as the game automatically sets a color for each player based on a modifier and the player's ID, and we decided to carry this over from RoboCat. It is possible that we'll have more player sprites in the beta of the game, but that is undecided as of yet. In regards to the background, I made a background in Photoshop using these tiles. So the initial plan was to have a background that looked like this, with the blue walls surrounding it, the red pickups throughout, and the red barriers that act both as obstacles and as cover for the players. And as you can see, we have the assets for each of those game objects in PNG files. However, these assets, with the exception of the pickups, have not been implemented in the game. When implementing them, Andrew ran into some SDL errors that we couldn't combat at the time, but we are hoping to overcome for beta. Going into the code base, the changes that I made involve the player spawn points and data permanence. So the player spawn points initially in the RoboCat code, the player spawn was just an offset from the center, and the offset being 1 minus whatever the player's ID was, and thus all the players would spawn in a line. We wanted the players to spawn on opposite sides of the screen depending on a modifier. This, for example, player 1 would spawn on the left, and player 2 would spawn on the right, 3 on the left, 4 on the right, etc. However, despite numerous differing attempts, I couldn't get this to work, and so instead we decided to go with a random spawn point for every player. This method being influenced by the Shadow multiplayer game we were shown from last year. So, in order to have the player spawn randomly, following the Shadow multiplayer example, we set up a random index and use the set location to call a spawn point using that index from these spawn points that are initialized up when the server is created. The reason we have the players spawn between 000 and 330 is because we found that if we went beyond 4, the number 4 in either the X or Y direction, the player would spawn off screen. And as frequent players know, that if you spawn off screen, you don't know where you are in the game world. We may utilize more numbers or more spawn areas as we progress into beta, and hopefully have a larger map in which we can move around. But for now, these are the spawn points that we have used. Now, in order to show you object permanence, I'm going to run the game. So what our game permanence is, we have a text file called session.txt, which is opened and edited in the network client, or the network manager client. So the idea being, if you are the first player to enter the game, i.e. your player ID is equal to 1, the game will open session.txt, which is located in the assets folder for now, and writes there is a new play session and the username and the player ID of the first player, which should be, for example, Hannah has been welcomed on client as player 1. It's simply just a copy of the log message that is up here, but this way the server can access it as a text file. If the player ID is more than 1, because you can never have a player 0, the information of those players, i.e. the name and player number, will simply be appended to the file, and this file will be rewritten every new game. So I have an old session here from the last time I was testing. As you can see here, new play session, test was welcomed on client as player 1, test 2 was welcomed as player 2. So in order to demonstrate both the random spawns and the data permanence, and so I'm going to run the game. Now, fair bit of warning, since I'm hopefully going to be running multiple instances on the one of client on the one server, the frame rate, coupled with the fact that I'm recording this, frame rate may get a little dodgy, so hopefully you'll be able to see everything. So I am going to run the server. Okay, server is up and running. Now I'm going to run the first instance of the client. Okay, so you can see there's me, Hannah. My score is 0. I'm after picking up a health pickup, which means my health went from 10 to 12, and I'm able to move around, and that's fantastic. And you see I just spawned in this general area. So I'm gonna minimize that, go to the Solution Explorer, and I'm going to just change the properties and change the name to P2, and then debug again, start another instance. You can see that player 2 spawned in a different place, automatically landing on a pickup. That's handy. P2 0, Hannah 0. Let's, for posterity's sake, let's add a third, if it will let me. Go to properties. We'll go P3. Oh, it's getting a little shaky now with so many things running. Start new instance. And there we have P3 who has spawned up here. Okay, so I'm just gonna end all of this before my computer combusts, which may be quite likely considering. Yep, the server has closed. All the instances have closed. So now if we go into multiplayer, go back into assets, which is the current location of the sessions.txt, we can see that the sessions.txt from earlier has been overwritten. Hannah was welcomed as player 1, P2 as player 2, P3 as player 3. And that is our example of data permanence. We may implement more instances of data permanence later on, but currently this is our plan going forward into beta. So I believe that is everything. The link to the GitLab repo will be in the video description. Once again, my name is Hannah Marr. I worked on this project with Andrew Disley, and thank you very much for watching.